A is for Alcoholic is a program about recovery. My name is John and I'm an alcoholic.
And my name is Jerry and I'm an alcoholic.
Join us as we go through the alphabet of alcoholism one letter at a time.
All right.
Last off with books. Was that? I had an old t-shirt that said
That was
last
my
off.
shirt. I gave it to you that I found
That's
at a
right.
Goodwill. It was like a reading program for the library.
Mm-hmm. I mean, where else would you have a reading program?
I don't know, Blockbuster.
Bring It On Home. Was that Blockbuster? Bring It On Home.
I don't know.
That's
I don't remember the commercials. You worked at Blockbuster. You got
Yeah.
fired for stealing.
I did get fired for
That's
stealing.
part of the A's for alcoholic canon. You've told
Yes,
that
it is.
story
If you go
a
back
couple times.
far enough.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. No, that's not. I was very much drinking at the time.
Yeah.
Very, very much. I was like, I wasn't drinking. I was too young. It's like
You
bullshit.
only quit drinking like, because you're too young. Yeah.
But I was. It didn't matter. We had our manager Sergio bought us all the booze we needed.
Sergio.
Like, so
showing
this
up
was
with the Hennessy.
well. So it was 1996, and there was a movie that came out called Dolores Claiborne. It was a Stephen.
Yeah,
King
I know
book.
it. I know it. Read the book, saw the movie.
And I remember
Oh,
liking the movie
t-shirt.
enough. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the T-shirt, the Dolores Claiborne T-shirt.
It's all Dolores Claiborne, 1996 World Tour.
And in the movie, the guy's drinking a bottle of what's called black and white Scotch whiskey. And for whatever, I don't know why I thought this old alcoholic man in a Stephen King movie was cool, or why I thought I had to have that bottle, but I made Sergio find me that bottle of whiskey Scotch. So I'm like 18 drinking a bottle of Scotch in my bedroom of my mom's house, like listening to
ice.
headphones.
Just
No
out of a
fucking
plastic
ice.
tumbler.
Maybe
Just, like
if
so
not the
fucking
bottle.
refined. Just so refined.
Blacked out. I was sleeping
Wait.
on a twin mattress on the floor.
Wasn't the husband of Dolores Claiborne like a abusive alcoholic rapist?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So you're like, man, that's my drink of choice right now is what the abusive rapist is
Not
drinking.
Malibu, not like Bartles and James, not
Jägermeister.
something fun. Yeah, exactly. And so I ended up puking on the floor. I woke up to a pile of puke next to me, next to the mattress on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of scooped some of it up and like tried to clean it up, but I was just embarrassed and didn't know what to do. So the rest of it, I just dumped a bunch of baking powder on it, baking soda, and then put a purple towel on top of it and lived with that.
Yeah, desperate times call for desperate actions. And then were you just like, fuck you, Stephen King, you lied to me.
I just
fuck you, Richard
towel.
Donner movie, Dolores Claiborne, or whoever recorded, whoever produced it.
It was the guy who played Edward R. Murrow in Good Night and Goodbye or something like that. I don't know the actor's name.
That shit sounds boring.
It probably was. But yeah, that was 1996 in Southern California. It was a beautiful time. I mean, not because of that. In spite of that.
Yeah, like no girl. Well, you're living with your mom. There weren't even girls in your.
There were no girls.
Because you're like, yo, welcome to my bedroom at my mom's house. Don't mind a purple towel. It's just covering up vomit.
Scotch laden vomit. Yeah, basically. But
gross.
Yeah, it was really awful. But I didn't think I had a problem. I was just having fun.
Dude, you were just having fun. You're just being a kid.
Right.
I don't even know if you had developed the problem. Do you think you're born? Do you think we're born with the problem? Or do you think we developed the problem? Or is it a mixture of both? I think it's a mixture of both.
So I think I was definitely, it's in my family on both sides.
Right.
I have family members, both, my father and even my mother's father. And I think her brother had some issues. I know her sister definitely had issues with like food. And so probably other things. So yes, I think I was born with a propensity toward it. And then, but I don't think it was like, boom, here we go. The very first, like, I don't have any memory of the very first drink.
Here we go.
Right?
Every time I hear people share, I would hear people share and be like, I was off to the races immediately. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's alcoholism.
But I think that early in high school, when I started drinking somewhat regularly, there was fun and there was friends, and it was like going to the park and getting somebody to buy, we go quote unquote fishing and go to 7-Eleven and find an adult to buy us bottles of Boone's Farm.
Yeah.
And so I remember one time getting a friend of mine had a soft guitar case, and we got these 2 Mexican painters, and I don't know, because I was the oldest or I looked the oldest or something, and they're like, go talk to him. And so I was trying to explain to these gentlemen, and there was a bit of a language barrier about what we wanted. And I wanted the Boone's Hill Farm, like whatever, Strawberry Hill, whatever it was. And at one point, I'm kind of standing outside the store. I give them all this money, and I tell them 9 bottles, because I don't know how many there were of us. There were several of us. And I'm on the outside, and at one point he goes and he reaches in for the bottle, and he like kind of comes up to the window like this one. And I was like,
shit.
It was a mess, but they got us the 9 bottles. We put it in the soft guitar case, and we walked over to the local park and got fucked
Drank
up.
them all.
Yeah.
My other question is, that dude almost blew up your spot. I'm glad that the Circle K guy wasn't paying attention or just didn't give a shit. But the other thing I was thinking about too is, do you think that alcoholics look at alcohol realistically, in the sense that most normal drinkers think, oh, this is a thing to just kind of alter my mood a little bit? But like me as a drinker, I always knew this is here to fuck me up. That's all this is for. This isn't here to alter my mood. I'm not going to lie to myself and be like, oh yeah, I'm just letting off a little steam. Like even when I was in denial as to how bad it had gotten out of hand, I still was like, this is a device to fuck me up, to alter my mood drastically. So I wonder if being an alcoholic, you're imparted with that almost like a wisdom, in a sense of being like, this is the real deal. This is exactly what this is for. Let's not mince words. You know what I mean? This is also my opinion. This is the way I looked at it. But
well,
what do you think?
From my narrow anecdotal evidence of myself and other people I've talked to, yes, absolutely. You look at it differently. I look at it differently. Right. Every alcoholic that I've talked to, at least the ones, no, that's not only the ones in recovery.
Yeah.
And when I hear, say somebody I was with the other day who still drinks and was kind of talking about, well, not as much as anymore, and this, that, and the other, and kind of having these sort of weird, felt a little flighty conversations about how much they drank. And I wanted to be like, dude, I know how much you used to drink. And unless you've changed, and it's possible, right? I think anything's possible, but alcohol really has a grip on people. And so yes, I think alcoholics see it differently. I think that,
well, I know we see it differently, but I wonder if we see it more realistically.
Oh,
like
realistically,
we actually see the man behind the curtain.
So
you know what I mean? And
yeah, sure. I mean, here's the thing. And I'm reading this book, which we're going to do a review on.
All right, you got to let me, it's like a 7-hour book, but we'll talk about this off pod.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I can listen to whenever. I just want to make sure I do it right before, so it's fresh in my memory.
Right. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm reading it now, and then I'm going to listen to it. But it's like,
and it's a recovery book, so it's probably boring.
It's not actually a recovery book. It's the science behind it, and it's fascinating.
That's awful. I'm just joking. Although some recovery books are super fucking boring, though.
Yes, they are.
I'm like, where's the sword fights, dude? Like, yo, dude, I need a gunfight. Where's the criminal heist?
I want to read your recovery book about sword fights and heists.
It's just dudes making out, whacking dicks together. That's my recovery book.
Whatever it takes, man. One day at a time, one dick at a time, right?
Hey, sometimes you gotta whack a dick against another dick. That's just part of my process, dude.
That's a profound analogy, Jerry. Or maybe it's not. So it's called Never Enough, and we're going to do a review. But one of the things that it talks about is how alcohol touches all these different parts of the brain, whereas things like cocaine laser in on one part. And so it fucks with all these various different processes and, everything in there. It's not just one little spot. And so I think that, do we see it realistically? Again, is it subjective, so that, if somebody who isn't an alcoholic, right? Because I've heard people go like, alcohol is evil, alcohol is the devil, alcohol is truly, it's a poison, right? But we've both said, well, it's kind of just an inert liquid in a bottle until it
because
gets inside
sugar
me.
and salt are poisons if you eat enough of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, no duh, bro. Come on.
But I guess I feel like it's it's kind of like a small t-shirt. It's going to fit somebody, and if I'm going to put it on, I'm going to look ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like,
but you're just going to keep wearing it because you really like it.
Exactly, right? Because I'm like, man, I love the way the collar looks, or I like the design on it. I love the way the design is on the shirt, even though it doesn't fit me. And so, like, my belly's hanging out, I'm ripping the shoulders.
Great
like
analogy.
I look, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great analogy. Because eventually you get used to it. And you're like, yo, this is how it fits. And we're all looking at you like, you look so fucking stupid. And you're just like, nah, I look great. This is how it fits. It's European.
Yeah, exactly. I've got, it's European. Don't worry about it. You don't understand.
It's part of my affectation, bro.
It's fashion.
My fashion.
So I think that that's part of it. I think it's definitely subjective. Although it's not just the alcohol. If people were just kind of like allowing grapes to ferment in a barrel and sharing it with their family and friends, that would be one thing. But you've got a multi-billion-dollar machine advertising it as something beautiful, wonderful,
and fun. And I guess it can be for most people, I think.
Most people, but also I feel like cracking open Bud Lights and White Claws on the river is great. I don't know, man. I mean, it's to each his own, but I feel like it's being marketed as something that it's not. And I feel like,
but everything is, though. I mean, it's not just alcohol. You know that. Cars are telling you they'll change your life. I mean, but that's all part of this fucking society. It's capitalism, bro.
Yeah.
That's why I'm an alcoholic, because of capitalism. Actually, but that's what it is. I mean, they're always
inaccurate. That's not inaccurate.
No, I mean, yes and no. Genetics mixed with depression and whatever, dude. I don't know. But they're always going to sell you shit and lie through their fucking teeth about how great it is. And alcohol is just one other thing. That's just the escape hatch. So maybe some people don't, maybe they're in denial. I think a lot of people are in denial too, that it's the escape hatch. It's a way to it's a way to disassociate.
Yes. It just
then to do it in a fun, friendly way, or to do it in a really serious, solemn way, you know.
The problem with these things is that they're addictive, and then you need more and more and more, and then the pain is worse and worse and worse. And so, I mean,
not for everybody though, John. This is just our experience.
Correct.
So, you know, and I didn't mean like a negative buzzer. I was actually going, you know, but you're right. You're right. These things are, but you know, we all have free will, and we live in America, and America says you do what you want.
It's a small t-shirt, and I wear a large.
Small t-shirt,
and that's it.
Sometimes small t-shirt look good on some motherfuckers. It's just not on you.
And you know, I'll try and like stretch it out, and I'll try and wear, you know, it a different way. And if I put it on inside out and thinking everything's going to be fine, but I'm never going to fit into a small t-shirt. I'm never going to be able to drink like a gentleman. I'm never going to be able to.
Well, neither of us will. At least I believe I won't, unless something changes. But I don't think anything's going to change. I know my nature, and I've tried this before. You know, I haven't tried it for a long enough. No, fuck it. I did try sobriety for a long enough period of time that I knew it wasn't going to work for me. Like I wasn't good at it. And it only lasted, like I always tell it in my story, but 3 to 4 days. And that's all I got, you know?
Yeah.
And then I celebrated those 3 days by getting fucking loaded. So
my longest before I got sober was 2 months. I did.
And that was because Chinese doctor in the Pike Marketplace told you to quit drinking. I mean, it doesn't matter what his race was. I remember he was his acupuncturist.
Well, his name was Esteban.
Really? Yeah. I thought it was no. Dude, I pictured the old Chinese guy from Gremlins.
Well, you're not far off from The Office and the amount of like weird shit that he had in there, and
it's like a bird cage, but there's no bird in it. It was just incense in a bird cage.
He had a whole like storeroom of like different drugs and herbs and shit. He didn't do anything on computers, so everything was written down. He had folders, like piles of folders. It was very bizarre. But yeah, so I did 2 months, and I couldn't wait. It was
Couldn't
the
wait.
last 2 months of the year,
Right.
and New Year's Eve came around, and I was like, "Fuck it, midnight, yes."
Yeah, and I drank with you, I think, that night.
So
Yeah, but
it's. I don't think that I'll ever be able to.
I think it's hard for me not to paint everybody else with the same brush I painted myself with, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like I look at other people, but see, I can smell the other alcoholics though, and like sometimes physically, but like mentally, I can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I haven't been around other people in so long that I don't even know. Do you know what I mean? This quarantine's been a motherfucker. But like when I, pre-quarantine, like when at the tattoo shop, I could tell an alcoholic. I could just tell. Tell. We can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Got our senses up, but it's hard for me not to paint everybody with the same brush as me, because like my sister, she'll drink 3 fucking White Claws and go to sleep. Do you know what I mean? Like my brother-in-law works in beer, and he'll actually get drunk like every once in a while, like once a week or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the week is a normal dude. He doesn't even get drunk once a week. Sometimes he won't get drunk for 2-3 weeks. And it's not like a falling down blackout drunk. It's just a goofy ass woohoo.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like this fucking shit that I was doing where I was putting alcohol on top of over everything else.
You know? Everything.
So I don't know, man. It's so weird because we have this podcast. We discuss alcoholism. We commiserate about alcoholism. You have the Instagram page. You have like 8 Instagram pages. I don't know what the fuck
they only allow you like 5, but
I know, because you're home alone during a quarantine, so you're just doing skits about alcoholism, I guess. But yeah, you're far more focused on it than I am in your life. So it is definitely a thing you look at a lot. You know, you do a lot of soul searching.
Yes, and so I do want to talk about the, different perspectives and different people, and I think that you and I, one, are not here to prescribe or push our particular program, right?
No,
I'm not interested in that. To each his own. And also I think that you and I, we've had a very similar experience in both drinking and recovery. Yeah. We have come to an agreement between the both of us that for the most part, we're not going to drink, or for the most part, what's the agreement? The agreement is we're not going to drink and we're going to come talk about it for a week, every week. That's our agreement, right?
Pretty much.
And so I trust that we're on the same page about most things. Obviously, not everything, like you just said. But everybody's different. And, I think that what I try to say here to people who are listening, there's only a few people that it's going to affect. This is not for everybody. The conversation we're having is not for everybody. And if you hear something that doesn't jibe with you, then you can just hit stop.
Right. It's just like going to a meeting and the lady starts talking about Trump and Jesus. I go pee. I don't give a fuck.
Right. Exactly. So for those of you, after last week, we had a bit of a it was an interesting show for me, and it brought on a lot of some heavy emotions.
It fucked you up worse than it fucked me up. I gotta be honest with you, dude. Yeah, I think you're still holding it.
So I'm gonna try and let it go today.
Right.
And
I'm just being direct. It fucked you up. Anyway, whatever. Dude.
It did. Well, it did. And so we had a friend of ours who, and you can go back and you can listen to it, and it's all there. And last week.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I started drinking again." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, I have about an ounce of wine." And he said when I talked to him afterwards, he said something to the effect of, "I only have very rarely. It's like months in between. It's not a weekly thing. It's not a nightly thing."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, and to me, that doesn't seem sober.
It doesn't meet my definitions of sober because I am subscribing to abstinence from alcohol. Yes. I shouldn't expect anybody else to subscribe to that. Even you shouldn't have to subscribe to that because of my definition of what it is.
And so
that would make this podcast real weird.
That's our agreement currently is abstinence.
With each other, more or less. Yeah. I mean, I'm accountable. We're accountable to each other as friends,
Right. But I mean, I don't hold you to, I wouldn't admonish you. Right.
No,
and so,
I don't think so. We shouldn't.
No. A lot of times I'll get this assumption that somebody's on the same team and on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they are, our friend is, still on my team. He's my friend.
Well,
and
and
he
he's
supports me.
drank alcoholically. We're
Right.
alcoholics. He's on your
Right.
team because he's an alcoholic, and so are you.
Right. And so for him to say that, I think immediately I felt a little like the bottom had dropped out. I felt kind of betrayed, but that's just all in my head because I'm not living his life and I'm not
Well, how
living
is he
his
betraying
experience.
you? He has no.
Exactly. Well, it's like I said, it's all in
Right.
my
And
head.
so you're being, I know, and I'm over here like, but
that's the feeling that I got because I had built up this
right. And you're
whole
being honest,
scenario,
yeah.
this whole narrative in my head about like, welcome to Sober Bros.
Right.
With the shield of AA and abstinence.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that was just mine. That's just my little.
That's weird. You're weird, dude. That's fucking really weird.
I don't know.
I love you. I love you with all my heart, but that's some
so
fruity shit.
So that's not the truth, and that's not the case.
I know it's
right.
Not.
That's because that's obviously not what happened. And so I felt betrayed, and then I was like, well, wait a second, it's none of my fucking business. And if I am going to take what we say literally, and if I'm going to practice what I preach, it's like, well, you do you, I'll do me. It's not for everybody. You should find it your own way. There's all kinds of ways to enjoy a better life with no or with less alcohol, right? If somebody said, hey man, I'm not ready to give it all up, but I think I'm going to cut back, I'd say, that's great, you should do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's great, you should do that. If it doesn't fit into your life. Now, if somebody says, hey John, I'm drinking a very small amount frequently, would I call that sober? For me, no. But if that works for you, then I guess good on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I think that it's really, and I think with me and our friend, like, it's a test for me because it's easy for me to talk about these things in the abstract to strangers I don't know. But then it's different when I have to talk directly to a friend who I've known for years and drank with for years. No?
Right.
I mean, so I think that it affected me. I worked through it. I understand it. I accept it. And I'm here to support and help my
I don't know though,
friends.
man. The fact that we are dedicating, a whole podcast to it, do you know what I mean? Means that you're still working through it though. Like,
sure.
And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm resilient. Like, I've had shit shake me in recovery, but the one thing I know that drunk people do is they drink. That's what we were talking about earlier. I was just like, drunk people drink, and sometimes drunk people stop drinking alcoholically and they just drink every once in a while, and then that's what they do. Have I seen, in all honesty, the people I know who have done it in the past, it doesn't work for them. Right. That being said, this is me observing from an outside source, watching them eventually go back to where they were before. I can't speak for what, we talked about with Coda last week. I don't know the context. He and I don't talk very much anyway, but I love him with all my heart. And we have one of those friendships where we kind of hit each other up every once in a while, but I can't speak to what is going on in his life or what he's doing with his shit. And and I'm not trying to be like, yo, I'm tougher than you, but I've had people in rooms who I sat next to, shared feelings with, and then they go back out and fucking die. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that hurts me. And this person's not my best friend, but I was like, yo, I thought we were all in the same boat, and you fucking die in Lane County jail because you fucking drink yourself to death and have, you know what I mean? Or you fucking OD on fucking oxys. And that happened a few times to me in early recovery. So to me, I was like, well, that's what we do. We get fucked up. I know earlier in previous podcasts, I've always said, I hate it when they try to scare you and say, not all of us are going to make it. But they're right. Not all of us are going to make it, dude. Just because you and I haven't figured out for the little short period of time we haven't had it figured out doesn't mean we haven't figured out. Nothing is certain, man. Nothing. I mean, you could wake up tomorrow with dick cancer. I don't know why I'm so dick centric today, but like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, nothing's certain. The only thing is certain is like, I don't know, the uncertainty of it all, I guess. But that being said, like I'm I feel bad. I'm sorry that I fucked you up. I know it definitely shook you and you were like, dang, dude, you know. And I was like, well, cool, man. Like I was shocked is the wrong word. Cause I was just like, well, cool, man. If you're gonna do what you do, and then good luck, hit me up if it gets out of hand. And if it doesn't, well, tell me how you got it to work. Because I would like that to work for me as well in the long run. Do you know what I mean? Like if I were offered some fucking thing to be able to drink non-alcoholically, I'd probably take it because I'm an alcoholic and I'm waiting for the good times. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, there was well, a couple things. I understand that the program can have a lot of fear mongering, and that's a real big
right. And I guess the only reason, before, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the only reason I bring that up is because I'm also following that with like, we're not all gonna make it though. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so
it's true.
I just don't want to sound like a hypocrite, even though I'm a huge hypocrite.
So I think that when I talked to him, you know, that was another thing, was like the fucking fear mongering, man. Like I just don't need that shit in my life. And I get it. And I totally get it, because I didn't have to be here. I didn't have to. It's quite possible I could still be drunk somewhere. Right.
Yeah. Oh
so,
yeah. Absolutely.
So I don't look at now. I don't impose. Like when I talk to people or people reach out to me, I don't impose that sort of, you better be afraid.
No.
But I've always, the people that I've helped in the past, I've just kind of laid it out and said, well, this is what happened with me. This is the experience. I have heard this repeatedly, these experiences from other people, both who have relapsed or who have gone on or who have struggled after 7, 10, 12, 20 years. And they're just like, why not? I got this licked. So, those are the stories that I hear, but I also hear stories of people who have quit entirely. I have yet to hear a story of somebody who has successfully gone back. Now, again, maybe that's because I'm not running in those circles. Maybe that's because the people who successfully go back to drinking like a gentleman or a gentlelady are not going to recovery meetings every single fucking goddamn week, right? So there could be a whole scope of experiences in moderation that I'm not privy to, because I just don't run in those circles and it doesn't make any sense to me. I got invited to go to, there's like some, you know, the restaurant I work at, they're going to go to some winery and it's this like, the guy who like he used to work for Pixar and he's got like a train in his house or some shit. And it's like, it'll be fun and you should come. And I said, well, you know what happens with these things is I go to these things, everybody gets drunk in the morning, and I'm usually just covering my glass or not. And I'm not interested in the south facing east slopes and the, you know, the clay-like soil and blah, 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 blah.
Cheese ain't that fucking good now.
That
cheese ain't that good.
I'm not fucking with the cheese this month.
Right. So who even?
So
what's it worth?
I appreciate them inviting me and wanting to be there, but I'm just not going to go. But again, so there's people who maybe have an experience where they drank alcoholically, they quit, and they can incorporate it back into their life in some way that makes them feel normal, which is what I think, you know, we all want on some level. I just know that I have to push my interests, focus, and attention into other venues of quote unquote normal. It just, alcohol cannot be a part of that for me.
Yeah, same here.
And so I think also you know, with everybody who's listening to this, like I feel a certain level of obligation to be clear about the message that I present for myself. So, I mean, I think that's part of also why it kind of fucked me up, is like, what am I doing here? But this is part of the experience. This is part of life. Alcoholism is messy and it's weird and it's complicated.
Well, it's part of the spectrum, dude.
Right.
You know, like, and this podcast is just a podcast. That's all it is. If you are depending, I got to be honest, if you are depending on this podcast, like if you're out there listening and you're like, my recovery depends on this podcast, then you're fucking up. That's all I got to say, because John and I are totally fallible. This podcast is completely fallible. This podcast is barely a choice I'm making every week. I got to be honest with you. So if you're like, I need this podcast to stay sober, you need to find other things in your life to keep you sober. Now, that being said, I understand your concern for what is the message I'm putting out, since other people are consuming what we're saying to each other. Even though this initially started as a two-way conversation, it has now become a small group of people listening to us have a conversation, right? But I also feel like in no way should this podcast be your only form of recovery.
No.
So if you're listening to last week's podcast and you're like, John and Jerry's friend drinks a sip of wine every 4 months, I might as well go back out and drink. Or that we are being like ingenuine. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I don't know, because our reaction to it didn't fit
admonishment or shame, right?
Yeah. Why would I admonish anyone for fucking drinking? That goes absolutely against the program I've been using. Like, why the fuck go back in the room if everybody's going to make you feel bad for doing what we're all born to do?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't mean to be so harsh about it. I'm just saying, like, if we're the only thing keeping you sober and that one episode is what pulls you over the edge, you got a lot of other things you got to deal with. And I would suggest finding a Zoom meeting, finding a recovery meeting, finding another alcoholic who's an actual person, not just me and John talking in our rooms, you know, like I don't know, man. So to me, and I also understand, like, you have a lot more invested in this thing than I do, like your time, your effort and stuff. I just show up, I'm grouchy, I say some shit, I talk about my penis, and then we're out, you know, like, but I see where you're coming from. But then also to me, I was like, because I was like, well, damn, should I have like come down on his ass and be like, I don't think that's a good idea. But even when we were friends and we were drinking, when I did that shit with him and with you and with anybody in my circle, y'all were like, shut the fuck up, dude. You're out of your lane. Get back in your lane. So for me, if you ask me, do you think that's fucked up? I'm going to be like, I don't think it's fucked up, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work for me. I don't know what's going to work for you. I'll watch you. And if it's not working, I'll come help you out, hold you up, because you're my fucking boy. But it wouldn't work for me. Like, I couldn't just have a little taste. I just couldn't do it. It just doesn't work for me.
T-shirt's too small, dude.
T-shirt's too small, dude. It becomes like a fucking sweatband. I don't get so emotional, but not emotional, but just so, you know.
No, I appreciate it.
I gotta police my tone sometimes, because I'm just like, yo, dude. Sometimes in recovery, though, some people really need something to hold them up. I get it. And people out there are desperate and sad. And some motherfuckers are just like being titty babies about it. And we all got to fucking rub some dirt on our ass and not be a titty baby sometimes. You just got to fucking deal with life on life's terms. Yeah. I don't know what any of that means. Now I'm turning into fucking Rush Limbaugh over here. Like, you know, but like if you're being a crybaby, you got to look in the mirror and be like, yo, I am kind of being a little too...
You got to get through it.
A little too soft and wet right now. Like,
so
you got to get through it, dude, because life sucks. Get through it. I'm soft and wet all the time.
All the time.
Things. I am, dude. I slept 4 hours last night, but doing nothing but bitching about it.
Well, also it's the wide breadth of the human experience, Jerry. It's all of it.
Exactly. And I would hate to disregard what someone's feeling. I'm not saying, I know where I'm coming from as a human being. I'm like,
I need to regard what I'm feeling. Right. And I need to and this is what I've learned, is I need to be in touch with myself. I need to, but I also need to know I need to call myself out on my own bullshit.
Right.
I can't listen to my excuses. My brain is full of excuses.
Yes.
My brain is full of things that are, going to make me justify all kinds of behaviors that I hate and that make me hate myself. Right. So I cannot listen to those things either. And I think that's what, I know that's what you're saying.
Right.
And if this podcast is the only thing, then you are correct. There needs to be, I've heard the phrase, it's a three-legged stool, and you can't, if you take one of the legs away, you can't stand. So you need legs. You need to have things in place so that when one of them goes away, whether it be in-person meetings or a podcast you really like or service or any of those things, you need to make sure that you have all of these things so that your stool can stay upright. If one of them goes away, you have to replace it with something else. You have to find something else. You have to. So I think that, yes, and it's fine to feel what you feel and be sad or be depressed or feel angry, but staying there has never led me to, or just saying, well, here, let me ask you this. At what point do I say, like, sugar consumption, right? At a certain point, you who were using food in some ways to replace alcohol, we all do food.
Yeah.
Sugar. At what point were you just like that moment where you're like, this is fucking gotta stop? I
was always fat though.
Well,
do you know
so
what I'm
was
saying though?
But
I was always fat. So it's not like when I got sober, I gained weight.
right.
When I got sober was I just ate more sugar. It was all pragmatic. It wasn't, I didn't have this, I have a different relationship with food than you do though. Because for me, it was very pragmatic. I didn't look at it and go, this sugar is too much. It's got to stop. It's just ruining my life. I didn't have that moment. I thought, I don't want to be fat anymore and feel like shit and almost shit my pants every day and have heartburn. So I'm going to lose weight. So what's going to make me lose weight? Cutting calories. What's full of fucking calories? Sugar. Sugar's full of calories. Bread's full of calories. I can eat these things, but I have to try to eat them within moderation, which then, of course, starts the Jerry weird fucking neurotic 10 points of like everything has to stack up and be perfect. Like my mom the other day was like, you really annoy me because you have to plan everything out to the minute. And I'm like, yeah, because if I don't have control over what's going on around me, fucking chaos. I can't handle it. I'll shit my pants and have heartburn. You know, so for me, it wasn't this emotional thing where like with you, you're like, fuck, this is fucking up my life. I'm just like, yo, I don't want to feel this way more, so I'm not going to do this. Yeah, you know, so it wasn't like this thing is taking over my life. It was more like I need to improve what's going on with me. You know, where bourbon was taking over my life. I'd rather drink than be with my wife and kid. I'd rather be fucking drunk than feel anything. So that took over my life. But Reese's peanut butter cups, nah, I love them with all my heart, but I'm not gonna eat 10 of them under cover of night. Do you know what I mean? Like a sneaky motherfucker, I just won't. I'll have a fucking apple will make you full. You know,
so you are correct. I have a far more emotional connection to
you have a very emotional connection with food, and this is not me roasting on your ass. We approach things in two different ways. You're very controlling over the way that you want to approach these things, and I'm very controlling on the way I schedule these things. You know, like I like schedules, and which is weird as fuck because I've never been like that. But I'm a good compartmentalizer. I put things in boxes, and they need to stay in those boxes. And once they go out of the box, everybody can go fuck themselves. Yeah, it like infuriates me, dude. That's why earlier my wife was getting ready and shit. I was like, are you serious, motherfucker? Like, you know, every week, got this podcast at noon. You're putting on makeup at 11:55 in front of the computer. Like, you're fucking with my box right now. Like, you're fucking around with it. I don't like it. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's my pathology. Yours is way different. But we do meet. We have that middle ground in that we both laugh at each other and we both are fucking did a little bit too much glug glug. You know what I mean? Our approach to the glug glug was very, very similar.
Very similar. Yeah. I have found pragmatic steps toward my emotional attachment to food have been extraordinarily helpful.
I imagine so. Yeah.
Right. One thing that I thought was, I bought a scale. And I thought that it was going to be like, oh, fuck, here we go again. All the measuring, all the compartmentalizing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I stepped on the scale and I was like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's suss out the scale thing. Because you're like, yo, I gained like 10 pounds. And I'm like, have you weighed yourself? You're like, no, I'm just eyeballing it. I'm like, what are you fucking eyeballing it? I'm like, buy a scale. And then you'll have some watermark, like some measure, right? So you did that. And then you were like, oh, I guess it wasn't 10 pounds.
Well, it was
or 20 or whatever.
Yeah. It was a little bit more, but I was like, oh, okay, this is totally manageable. Yes, and so then it's like, okay, what are the other behaviors, and how do we replace these with, how do we find better habits, and how do we
Mhm.
find like, and so I also asked for help, right? So a woman I know
Mhm.
who's a nutritionist, she does some other stuff too, but she sent me these paperwork, what do you call
Mhm.
them, I don't know, worksheets
Mhm.
about cravings. And I was like, oh,
Right.
okay. So like, what were you doing 2 hours before the craving, 1 hour before the craving? How do you feel in the midst of it? How do you feel after you give into it? How do you feel after you don't give into it? How do you
Right.
feel an hour afterwards? And so
Mhm.
it gave me these tools, right? Tools, we say that a lot, to use. And I was like, okay, so now I have something to combat this, to understand it, to let it go eventually, right? All this shit is about letting it all go. Everything. Just let the problems go, let the things that cause the problems go, let my attachments to the things that cause the problems go. Can I release alcohol? Can I release sugar? Can I release my relationship with my father? Can I release my dysfunctional relationships in the past with women? All of these things. Do I have to be attached to any of this shit? I don't have to. I
Right.
just need to find the right tools
Mhm.
to let those things go for me. That's what
Right.
it's all about.
Mhm. But sometimes you won't.
And sometimes I won't. And
Do you know what I'm
those,
saying though? Like
yes.
I've always felt like this whole thing is so abstract. Like
Hmm.
it's bigger to me than just not drinking anymore. It's like working on
Yeah.
myself. But then I'm like, well, am I doing the work right? Am I doing it correct? How do I
Well,
know?
I.
But I know I don't feel like shit all the time. That's how I
Hmm.
know. And I
Hmm.
don't fucking fly off the handles. I still do. You're gonna
Hmm.
not let shit go. You're gonna die unresolved, straight up. I'm not gonna. I don't want to sound like a
Great.
dick.
You know what?
We
I'm
are
done.
both. We're both gonna die unresolved. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna be able to figure it all out. We're not gonna be able to let it all go. I'm sorry. I should be using my I statements.
It's.
I'm gonna die unresolved. There are things I will never be able to let go. They're just. It
Hmm.
just will. It just is. I just the acceptance of that is more freeing than letting the shit go sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to look in the mirror and be like, you're a fucking mess. And that's all right. Just try
Yeah.
not to mess all over everybody else today.
Yeah.
And the days you have your tiny victories, celebrate them. It's just like
Yeah.
you in the scale and looking at it and be like, okay, this is manageable. You know, when I first started losing weight, I weighed myself every fucking day and I did it for like, okay, so I've been now maintaining calories since 2018. I
Hmm.
lost 50 pounds in like 6 months, dude.
Uh,
Like I pushed, like
yeah.
I was eating 1400 calories a day. Like
Damn.
that's not how you're supposed to do that. You're
It's not
supposed to do
healthy.
it gradually. I mastered
Yes.
the point where people at the tattoo shop are like, are you okay? Do you have cancer? But I weighed myself every day. I don't weigh myself every day anymore. I weigh myself like every 3 or 4 days. But maybe
Hmm.
what is manageable for you is instead of weighing yourself every day, just weigh yourself
Hmm.
every Thursday, just to get
Yeah.
a just to get
Yeah.
a meter, just to see where you're at. And then
Yeah.
what's your BM? What's supposed to be your healthy BMI for a guy your age and your size? Do you
I
know
don't
that
know.
yet? Or like a
Yeah.
healthy weight? So you're what, 43,
Yeah.
44?
40. I just turned 44. I just had a
So you're
birthday. Yeah.
44, you're like 6'1" or something. You're
Hmm.
kind of a tall dude.
Hmm.
So like I go online, I'm like, okay, because let's talk about weight loss. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just okay, because I've gained weight since I've been here. I've gained about 5 pounds, about
Hmm.
more or less between 3 to 5 pounds. I fluctuate, right? Because with water and salt and shit, you're heavier some days than other days. So I'm like at 158 right now. And I want to be at like 153, 155, somewhere in that range. So then I go online, I look it up. I'm like, what's a healthy weight for a guy my age, 45, who will be 46, and he's like 5'9"? Because I'm about 5'9", 5'10", somewhere there. And I'm right at it. They're like 160 pounds. So I'm still under it. You know what I mean? So you got to
Hmm.
look and be like, but sometimes they're wrong. Like you'll get some weird European shit that's like, you need to be 135. And I'm like, 135, like that's ridiculous. Like when I
Yeah.
was at 149, everybody thought I was dying. I look like a fucking scarecrow. It's just,
Hmm.
and also, do you feel healthy? I mean, where's the ideal you're working towards? Your goal weight, is it for health? Is it to fit into that small t-shirt finally? Is it what is it? You know what I mean? Like
It's health. Yes, it's health. Of
health,
course, it's
right?
health.
Do you have one of these?
No, not yet.
You should look into getting something like this because then you can monitor your heart rate with it and be like, okay, this is my resting heart rate. That's a healthy resting heart rate. Or I need to, and I imagine your heart rate's great because you run more than
Hmm.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're working that muscle.
Yeah.
I don't
The
know.
heart and the lungs are pretty good. The last time I got checked, they were like, "Wow, you've got really great lung capacity." I said,
I love it now. Isn't that great? You go to the doctor and you don't hear bad shit. They're like, you have excellent heart rate for a man
right?
your age. I'm like,
Yeah,
really? She's like,
exactly.
yeah, your blood pressure's fucking killing it. Whereas
Mhm.
before they were like, yeah, you're
Boom, boom, boom,
borderline
boom,
high
boom.
blood pressure.
Right,
Back in 2017.
right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. You can't eyeball some of that shit. You got to like be a little more exact. I don't know
So
why I'm giving you advice though. I'm sorry.
no,
I
no, no, no,
apologize.
no,
I
no.
hate to
I
do that.
appreciate this. This is great. This is fine. This is good. I appreciate it.
This is not the roast of John Staley.
No, no,
Because I
another
love you.
program.
I guess that's another. That's the G. Gluten is not your problem.
The
Your
roast of John
tri-weekly.
Staley.
Yeah,
My tri-weekly.
your
Yes,
tri-weekly podcast.
so yeah, so I'm using these tools. I'm learning from you, right? I'm
Right.
like saying, okay, well, you've done this. How have you done this? And then other
This is
things
what
that
worked
don't,
for me.
what
Yeah.
worked for you and why I'm doing it.
Was
What is the
this?
purpose? I've
Mhm.
also noticed that I have, started to gain a little bit more muscle. I've been doing some, so it's like,
Yeah,
so,
dude.
right. So the
Mhm.
weight is going up in certain ways and needs to come back down in others. And it's like, okay. And I'm starting to kind of go, you're pretty fucking normal in that respect, John. So you're
Right.
not
Mhm.
abnormal and you're not where you were at, where
Right.
it's all,
Mhm.
again, it's all up in my head. So, and again, normal is another thing that I think people want to, when they're drinking, not drinking, or especially when we quit as alcoholics, there's this desire to want to feel normal. And I think that's,
Right.
you know, something else that I imagine when you want to have a sip of wine with dinner or something like that. But
That's normalcy, right? And so that's what we were talking about with
mhm,
Homeboy last week.
mhm.
He's
And
like, I'm just tasting it, and you and I are like, okay, like good luck
mhm.
with that. And for you, you were like, I don't know, like I don't know. I think you felt a little, like you said, you felt a little betrayed. You were like, I thought you were in the boat with us, but you're in a different boat. You're in that boat with those people over there who are moderating.
Right. And that's
And
fine,
that boat's
right?
all on
That is
fire, bats flying out of it.
right. Fire and bats.
I'm
Yeah,
smiling. If
basically.
you're listening right now instead of watching us, I'm joking.
um so yeah, I understand the desire to want to be normal and to be
Yeah,
comfortable. And when
that's
I
what.
think about, like going to a wine tasting, but I'm like, man, I'm not interested in that shit at all. Like I need,
No,
but
no. Like I said,
I
wine tastes like shit to me. It always has. It
I also
does,
know
dude.
that
It
if
just does.
yeah, I also know that if I tried to be normal, if I tried to, moderate, I wouldn't. Because I can already feel it. I can be like, fuck moderation, dude. Let us finally. That
This
little
is what I
part of
was
my
saying
brain is like,
earlier.
oh, I just
If
want to
they had
fucking cut
found out
loose.
some operation, or like even the
Mm-hmm.
alcoholics say about the whole fucking thing, oh, if they could give me a pill that would make me quit drinking, I'd take two of them, like. But yeah,
Yeah.
but in my brain, I do think like if there was some
Mm-hmm.
change that allowed me to drink like a normal person, it's
I would.
fucking party time. It's party time. It's
I'd
time
be
to get
looking for the
fucking
loophole, right?
loaded.
I'd be
Yeah,
looking
exactly.
how to take advantage of it, how to hack
Dude,
it, how
it's a
to.
fucking snake eating its own tail, dude. That's the whole fucking
Mm-hmm.
Schrodinger's cat of the
Mm-hmm.
motherfucker, like the whole puzzle, the mind puzzle.
There was some nonsense. Somebody was working on something that was, I think it was on Vice News, and it was this thing that it doesn't exist yet, or at least it's not available. But it was kind of like this thing you could drink that was, it didn't have alcohol in it, but it had something else that gave you some of the positive effects of alcohol, of making you feel relaxed and comfortable without any of the bad
Mm-hmm.
side effects.
There's just a Xanax crushed up in water.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but I know too that, like,
You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
feel like
Like,
there's any free lunches out there, Jerry, when it
no,
comes
there
to this
isn't in
stuff.
that vice in their shit. Young
Right.
people. Listen, young people. You're just drinking Xanax crushed up in water. What's the difference whether it's booze or Percocet or special mineral water from some Icelandic fucking geyser that alters your reality? Do you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, to if you're using it to get fucked up, you're using it to get fucked up.
Right.
Whether it's holding your breath or doing whippets. Like, I fucking loved whippets.
I
I loved
remember.
whippets so much,
That's
dude.
crazy. I
How
remember too.
stupid. I was fucking huffing nitrous oxide out of fucking whipped cream chargers. to get like lightheaded to feel different. You know, it doesn't matter. That's not alcohol.
I remember going to the porno shop to buy crackers and balloons and
Yeah, dude.
canisters, chargers.
What was
Yes.
that too? It's like, yo, I'm gonna fucking whack off and do whippets all night, which
What?
I've done. So I don't
Yeah.
know, you know.
Yes. You and me both.
Yo, I'm gonna watch mad porn and do mad whippets. Who's gonna come over? I got a fifth of scotch.
Gross.
But
right?
that is gross. But what I'm saying is you're right. They were always looking for the loophole and the workaround. The loophole literally is just crushed up
Always.
fucking Xanax and water.
And so
Come
so
on
I'm just
now.
I don't think that. And so again, I would say that the only thing that you and I are one of the main thing is the abstinence is basically the thing that we agree on as
It
far as
works for
alcohol
us.
goes.
Well,
It
I'm
works
agreeing
for
with
us.
myself more than I agree to you. You hold me accountable. I
Correct,
agree to
correct.
myself, right? I'm not like, yo, I owe John this. I
No.
owe him this. No, but I do think if I don't show up and because I'm drunk, it's gonna fuck his shit up. You know what I mean? Imagine if I started drinking, that'd fuck your shit up even worse. You'd just be like,
if you started drinking, that would make for it would be a very different podcast, and I don't know that it would.
we just keep still doing the podcast. You'd be like, how you do today? I'm like, real hungover, and fucking slowly turn it into a thumb.
Yeah,
And then just this room would get emptier and emptier. Eventually, it'd just be me podcasting on my phone.
in the on a cell phone.
Yeah, because Megan and Olive would be like later drunk ass.
Yeah.
So it's look at that. Like, walk it. This is good, right? We walk it forward. What happens
Yeah.
if you drink, Jerry? Gotta walk that shit forward, or play the tape
Podcasting
back
on a cell phone.
Yeah, just on my fucking crack screen.
Basically,
Not homeless, but definitely not with a home. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't have a house, but I'm not houseless either, though.
Somewhere
like, I'm in
between.
that middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I just
but if you started drinking, I fucking wouldn't be mad at you. I'd be like, yeah, figures, we're alcoholics. This is what we do.
Right.
I mean, I have faith in you to continue being abstinent from alcohol, but at the same point, if you started drinking, I wouldn't clutch my pearls and be shocked. I'd be like,
right.
Yeah, he's a drunk. It's what we do.
Right.
If he needs me, he can call me. I'll reach
Yeah.
out to you once or twice. And if you don't want me to, I won't reach out to you.
Yeah.
But if you need me, you can always hit me up. Always. Because, and that goes to, well, not straight. I don't know y'all strangers' asses, but hit me up on Instagram. Just don't call my personal number. I need that.
Yeah, right. I don't want that.
But seriously, if you're listening to this podcast and I'm over here saying all this shit and you're like, dang, I'm having a hard time, like send me a message on Instagram at Jerry Wagner Jr. I'll talk to you. Yeah, dude, we need each other. But at the same time, we also need to realize that you lose some from the herd, man.
Yeah. I think
not that I don't want Coda to think we've written him off because we're already saying his name. Like I know Coda listens to this.
Yes.
And I don't want him to think, oh, I've written you off or I think there's something wrong with you. I just
absolutely not.
Do what you're doing. It's like it's a spectrum. Like you said, John, all of our perceptions of recovery is a spectrum. You and I, we are abstinent. Some people are like very, very moderate. Some people are moderate. Some people are drunk as fuck and trying. You know what I mean? Like
it doesn't. Yeah. And I don't want to come with any judgment. And that, like I said, that betrayal was all in my head because it wasn't real. It wasn't, because I don't judge him or anybody else. I really, really, really don't. Unless, and even then it's not a judgment, but if you're going to infringe upon my boundaries, and it's not even the alcohol use, it's the behaviors that come with it that are the problem.
Right. We don't mind you drinking. Right.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's the behaviors. It's calling me at 3:00 in the morning. It's fucking, shitting on the floor. It's making a mess of your life and those around you. That's the problem. It's not the inert whiskey sitting in a bottle on a shelf at Safeway, right?
Yeah.
It's all the behaviors that come around it. So when those change, then yes, boundaries will be drawn. I will be able to help you. That help will be conditional.
Yeah, of course, dude. You gotta
because
consider
of those
yourself while you're
behaviors.
doing this shit. Yeah.
I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to help if you want help. That's the other thing, right? Isn't that what your dad said something like, if people aren't asking for help, then there's nothing for you to do, right?
Exactly.
So
that's exactly in any case, all cases.
Any case of all cases, right? So if nobody's asking for help, then it's none of my fucking business.
Right.
But I will not suffer bad behavior that crosses boundaries that I have set in my life.
Hear that, Walter? No, I'm just calling everybody out. Walter doesn't do that. I'm just playing.
No,
I like to give Walter a hard time.
He's extraordinarily respectful. He's a very.
He's not going to hit you up at 4 in the morning and be like, listen.
Well, I turn the phone off. So he does occasionally. I'll get a strange text message, but no. But yeah. So I mean, that's the bottom line, right? So if you need help, give me a call, send me a message. But if the behavior is going to be something that I can't tolerate, then I'll let you know. So do you know what I mean? And
yes, no, you have your boundaries.
No judgment.
We got boundaries. Yeah, that should be our A is for alcoholic. We got boundaries.
We got boundaries.
We got boundary issues.
So yeah, man, I'm like fucking hopeful and helpful, and like there's no love lost,
right?
Because of it. It was just not. It was unexpected.
I know, and it's been on your mind, so we might as well address it on the podcast, because this is what this podcast has been this entire time anyway, is just addressing our issues with everything. So, everybody get prepped for next week when we have an intervention with Coda on the podcast.
Why don't you have a seat?
There's a lot of people who really love you here, man. He's going to be listening to this in his car being like, those fucking assholes.
And I'll get Jeff Van Vonderen from the show Intervention.
Then he'll be like, even fucking worse. I love this guy's work. You son of a bitch. I love this guy's work.
So I think, yeah. All right. Live and let live. L is for live and let live.
That was the L. And then I was going to be like, what do you mean live and let live? Nobody's done anything wrong to us. Well, I should be like, let's talk about sex. That's what L is.
Let's talk about sex.
It happens. Dude, sober. It's freaky as shit.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't, but I can't even fill an hour. Well, I'd just be like, yeah, whatever your version of sex is, do that sober and see what happens. It's weird as fuck at first. Then after a while, it's just normal, like everything else.
No, I mean, live and let live in that what somebody else does is none of my fucking business. And that's where I got invested in somebody else's life, right? Mm-hmm. I got invested. I allowed myself and my well-being to be contingent upon somebody else's actions and behaviors.
Right.
That was none of my business.
Word. But you learned a lesson in a very soft way. Yes. And you should be grateful for that. I'm not that you know what? I'm not going to tell you what to be grateful for, but at least it wasn't like you learned, oh, my friend has a little mouthful of wine, supposedly once every few months. It's a lot better than, oh, my friend started fucking mainlining meth again and he stole my TV and fucked my dog. Do you know what I mean? Which that shit happens tui Maybe not the dog fucking, probably the dog fucking with meth though.
Maybe.
Probably with meth.
So it was, you're right. It was a soft lesson and I am grateful for it.
I shouldn't tell you what to be grateful for. This whole thing is me crossing all my boundaries with you, dude. I'm sorry.
Fine. You're totally fine.
I
was thinking about you too, because a lot of times we talk about the programs that we work and whether or not we work them well. And you sometimes say, I don't know, don't listen to me. I'm not working a fucking program worth of shit or whatever.
Garbage program.
But I was thinking about you and I'm like, so here's a guy who's a devoted husband, who's a caring, loving father, who is now a trusted part of a household, who's building a house, who at some point, there's all these things. So obviously whatever program you are working is not garbage, it's working. Right?
Yeah, could be better, but yeah, I guess it'll do for now.
And this also made me think that we both got sober in a particular 12-step program, but that within those 12-step program, there are just many different ways to go about it and to look at it, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
People do it all the time.
Yeah.
So when they say, find what feels good or find what works for you, I would only couple that with know what your excuses are, right?
Ooh,
I have to know what my bullshit is so that I don't listen to it. So that's the big caveat with, find what feels good, find what works for you, because I found what works for me. And then I have the other part of my brain that's like, yeah, man, but like, give yourself a break. It's it's all right. No, you don't need to today, or you should have a little bit more. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not those voices. Not today, man. I'm not interested. And I feel good today for the most
Good.
part. It's been a week. I've cut out the sugar, I've cut out the carbs.
You're not feeling
I know.
jittery and mean?
No, I don't.
Good.
I've been eating. I come home. I eat a bowl of frozen blueberries with a spoon.
Yeah.
Because they get my finger. They stain my fingers.
Yeah.
So that's like my little treat is a bowl of frozen blueberries, and it's awesome.
It's just something like a bear.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
I eat like a bear. I do.
Yeah. This is granola and blueberries. You'll figure it out, Johnny.
Yeah. So I mean, thanks.
I just doing lines of sugar over there at your house. You're just
Basically, I was. I mean, this. Yes. Chopping up lines of white. What is it? G&H. What's the
G&H? Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. What else, Jerry? Is that the end of this?
I think that's the end of it, dude. Oh yeah, I wanted to go back and say I only think recovery books are boring because there's no fucking ghosts in them. Needs to be more ghosts and horror in recovery books. And a heist.
I am not your higher power, Jerry.
Yeah, exactly.
You must find that for yourself.
Y'all can recommend me a recovery book with a ghost in it, like The Shining, which is not about recovery. It's more about relapse.
The opposite.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Dr. Sleep a recovery book with ghosts in it?
Best recovery book ever. Has ghosts in it.
There you go.
Fucking astral projection. Shit.
They do exist. Thank you, Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, man, for getting me through this week.
Thanks for letting me insult you for an hour. It's been great.
Oh, what a pleasure. What a joy. What a treat. Yeah.
It's always a pleasure, Jerry.
All right.
John.
I'll talk to you later.
Later.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.